Maya Chen sat in the back corner of Jefferson High School's cafeteria, her lunch tray barely touched as she watched the steam rise from her soup. The noise around her felt like a wall of sound that she couldn't break through. Students laughed, shouted, and shared stories while she remained invisible in her small corner of the world. She had always been quiet, even as a child. Her parents often worried that she didn't speak up enough, didn't make friends easily. They had moved to this town 3 months ago when her father got a new job at the local hospital. Maya had hoped that starting fresh in a new school would give her a chance to reinvent herself, maybe find the courage to speak up and make friends. But things hadn't worked out that way. The trouble started on her very first day. Maya had accidentally bumped into Jessica Williams, the most popular girl in junior year, while trying to find her locker. Jessica's expensive coffee had spilled all over her white designer shirt. Instead of accepting Maya's sincere apology, Jessica had looked her up and down with disgust and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Watch where you're going, weirdo." From that moment, Maya became a target. Jessica and her group of friends seemed to take pleasure in making Maya's life difficult. They would whisper and point when she walked by, knock her books out of her hands in the hallway, and spread rumors about her being strange and antisocial. Maya tried to ignore them at first. She told herself that if she just kept her head down and focused on her studies, they would eventually get bored and leave her alone. She was an excellent student, always had been. Math and science came naturally to her, and she found comfort in the logical world of equations and formulas where everything had a clear answer. But the bullying only got worse. During English class, when Mrs. Patterson asked students to read aloud, Jessica would make fake coughing sounds whenever Maya spoke, causing other students to giggle. In the hallways, Jessica's friend Amanda would accidentally shoulder-check Maya, sending her stumbling into lockers. During gym class, no one would pick Maya for their team, leaving her standing alone until the teacher had to assign her to a group. The worst part wasn't even the direct bullying. It was the way other students looked at her, or rather the way they looked right through her. Maya had become the school's invisible girl, someone to be avoided or ignored. She ate lunch alone, worked on group projects by herself, and walked the hallways like a ghost. At home, Maya tried to hide what was happening from her parents. They were both working hard to establish themselves in their new jobs and seemed stressed enough already. Her mother, Dr. Sarah Chen, worked long hours at the local clinic while her father, Dr. Michael Chen, was trying to build relationships with other doctors at the hospital. The last thing Maya wanted was to add to their worries. When her parents asked about school, Maya would give short answers. "It's fine," she would say, forcing a smile. "Just adjusting to the new place." They seemed to accept her responses, though sometimes she caught her mother looking at her with concern. Maya's only refuge was the school library. During lunch breaks and free periods, she would hide among the tall shelves of books, finding a quiet corner where she could read in peace. The librarian, Mrs. Rodriguez, was kind and never bothered her with questions. Sometimes Maya wondered if Mrs. Rodriguez could see through her calm exterior to the pain underneath. But the older woman never pressed her to talk. One particularly difficult day, Maya had been walking to her chemistry class when Jessica deliberately stuck out her foot, causing Maya to trip and fall hard on the linoleum floor. Her books scattered everywhere and papers flew in all directions. As Maya scrambled to collect her things, Jessica and her friends stood over her, laughing. "Maybe you should watch where you're going," Jessica said mockingly. "Oh wait, you're just naturally clumsy, aren't you?" Other students in the hallway had stopped to watch, but none of them helped. Some even took out their phones to record the scene. Maya felt her face burn with embarrassment as she gathered her scattered belongings. She wanted to say something to defend herself, but the words wouldn't come. They never did. That night, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how much longer she could endure this. She thought about telling her parents, but what could they do? Talk to the school? That would only make things worse. Jessica and her friends would just be more careful about when and where they tormented her. Maya had always been a strong person, but everyone has their breaking point. She was beginning to wonder if she had found hers. The constant stress was affecting her sleep, her appetite, and even her grades were starting to slip. She felt like she was drowning in a sea of indifference and cruelty. The next morning, Maya stood in front of her bedroom mirror, trying to summon the courage to face another day. She practiced different responses to the insults she knew would come, imagining herself standing up to Jessica and her friends. But when she opened her mouth to speak the words aloud, nothing came out except a whisper. As she walked to school that morning, Maya made a decision. She would try one more time to find her voice, to stand up for herself. If she couldn't do it today, she would ask her parents to transfer her to a different school. She couldn't continue living like this, invisible and afraid. Little did Maya know that her life was about to change in a way she never expected. Sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places, and sometimes courage is contagious. What Maya didn't realize was that she hadn't been as invisible as she thought. Someone had been watching. Someone who was about to make a choice that would change everything. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test everyone's character and prove that sometimes one person's courage can make all the difference in the world. Jake Morrison had been watching Maya Chen for weeks, and he didn't like what he saw happening to her. As captain of the basketball team and one of the more popular students at Jefferson High, Jake had always tried to stay out of drama and focus on his sports and studies. But what Jessica Williams and her friends were doing to the quiet new girl was bothering him more each day. Jake first noticed Maya during his second period chemistry class. She sat 3 rows ahead of him, always paying attention, always prepared with the right answers when Mr. Davis called on her. She was clearly smart, maybe even smarter than most of the students in their advanced placement class, but she seemed so alone, so isolated from everyone around her. At first, Jake hadn't thought much about it. Some people were just naturally quiet and preferred to keep to themselves. He respected that. But then he started noticing other things. The way Maya would flinch when Jessica's group walked by, how she always chose seats at the back of classrooms, as far from other students as possible. The way she hurried through the hallways with her head down, clutching her books tightly to her chest. Jake's younger sister Emma was a freshman, and she had mentioned Maya a few times at dinner. "There's this girl in my English class," Emma had said one evening. "She seems really nice, but nobody talks to her. I feel bad for her." When Jake asked Emma to describe the girl, he realized she was talking about Maya. The breaking point for Jake came during lunch on a Tuesday. He was sitting with his basketball teammates at their usual table near the center of the cafeteria when he saw Jessica and her friends approach Maya's corner table. Jake couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could see Maya's face getting redder and redder. Then Amanda, one of Jessica's followers, accidentally knocked Maya's water bottle off the table, sending water splashing across Maya's textbooks and papers. Maya jumped up quickly, trying to save her homework from getting completely soaked. Jessica and her friends laughed and walked away, leaving Maya to clean up the mess alone. Jake watched as Maya gathered her wet papers, her hands shaking slightly. A few other students had noticed what happened, but they all looked away quickly, not wanting to get involved. That's when Jake realized he had a choice to make. He could continue being a bystander, telling himself it wasn't his problem, or he could do something about it. His mother had always taught him that good people stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. His father, a police officer, had told him countless stories about how staying silent in the face of injustice made someone just as guilty as the person causing harm. Jake stood up from his table, ignoring the confused looks from his teammates. "Where are you going, man?" asked his best friend Tyler. "Lunch isn't over yet." "I'll be right back," Jake said, walking toward Maya's table. He could feel eyes following him as he crossed the cafeteria. Students weren't used to seeing the popular kids interact with the outcasts. Maya was still cleaning up when Jake reached her table. She looked up at him with surprise and what might have been fear. She probably expected him to add to her humiliation somehow. "Hey," Jake said softly, picking up some of her soggy papers. "Let me help you with this." Maya stared at him for a moment, clearly confused. "You don't have to," she whispered, her voice so quiet he had to lean closer to hear her. "I know I don't have to," Jake replied, continuing to help gather her things. "But I want to. This isn't right what they're doing to you." For the first time since Jake had noticed her, Maya looked directly into his eyes. He could see the pain there, the exhaustion of dealing with constant harassment. But he also saw something else, a spark of hope, maybe even gratitude. "Thank you," she said, and though her voice was still quiet, there was genuine emotion in it. Jake helped her carry her wet books to the library, where Mrs. Rodriguez let them spread everything out to dry. They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Jake spoke again. "I'm Jake, by the way. Jake Morrison." I know who you are, Maya said, then seemed embarrassed by her admission. I mean, everyone knows the basketball captain. I'm Maya Chen. I know, Jake said with a smile. You're in my chemistry class. You always know the answers Mr. Davis is looking for. Maya seemed surprised that he had noticed her in class. Chemistry makes sense to me. People are more complicated. Jake nodded, understanding what she meant. Jessica and her friends. How long has this been going on? Maya hesitated as if she wasn't sure whether she could trust him. Since my first day here. I accidentally spilled coffee on Jessica's shirt and she's been making my life miserable ever since. That's not okay, Jake said firmly. Nobody deserves to be treated like that, especially over an accident. Why do you care? Maya asked suddenly. The question wasn't accusatory, just genuinely curious. You don't know me. We've never even talked before. Jake thought about her question for a moment. My dad always says that you can judge a person's character by how they treat people who can't do anything for them. Jessica treats you badly because she thinks she can get away with it. Because she doesn't think anyone will stop her. Maybe it's time someone did. Maya looked at him with something that might have been hope mixed with fear. If you stand up to Jessica, she'll just make things worse for me when you're not around. And she might start targeting you too. Let me worry about that, Jake said. Nobody should have to go through what you're going through alone. They spent the rest of lunch period in the library, talking quietly about classes and teachers. Jake learned that Maya was interested in becoming a doctor like her parents, and that she had been homeschooled before moving to Jefferson High. Maya learned that Jake wanted to study engineering in college and that he had been playing basketball since he was 7 years old. When the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, Jake walked with Maya to her next class. He noticed how other students stared at them, whispering to each other about the unlikely pair. He also noticed Jessica watching them from across the hallway, her expression dark and calculating. Jake, Maya said as they reached her classroom door, you really don't have to do this. I don't want you to get in trouble because of me. Maya, Jake said, looking at her seriously, nobody gets to decide whether you belong here except you, and everyone deserves to feel safe at school. I'm not going to stand by and watch them treat you like this anymore. As Jake walked to his own class, he could feel the weight of the decision he had made. He knew that standing up to Jessica wouldn't be easy. She had a lot of influence at school, and she could make life difficult for anyone who crossed her. But Jake also knew that some things were more important than social status or avoiding conflict. That afternoon, Jake talked to his sister Emma about Maya. Emma was excited to learn that someone was finally paying attention to the lonely girl in her English class. She promised to try to include Maya in conversations and group activities whenever possible. Jake went to bed that night knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges. Jessica wouldn't take kindly to his interference, and Maya would probably face even more harassment as a result. But Jake had made his choice, and he was prepared to see it through. Sometimes doing the right thing wasn't easy, but it was always worth it. The next morning brought exactly the kind of confrontation Jake had expected. He was at his locker before first period when Jessica Williams approached him, flanked by her usual group of followers. Amanda, Brittany, and Chloe stood behind her like bodyguards, their arms crossed and expressions hostile. We need to talk, Jessica said, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to getting her way. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled and her makeup was flawless as always. But there was something cold in her blue eyes that Jake had never noticed before. What about? Jake asked, continuing to organize his books for the day. He knew exactly what this was about, but he wasn't going to make it easy for her. About your little charity case, Jessica said, her voice dripping with disdain. That weird girl you were playing hero for yesterday. Maya, whatever her name is. Her name is Maya Chen, Jake said firmly, closing his locker and turning to face Jessica. And she's not a charity case. She's a person who deserves to be treated with respect. Jessica laughed, but there was no humor in it. Respect? Jake, you don't understand what you're getting involved in. That girl is strange. She doesn't talk to anyone, she doesn't participate in anything, and she clearly doesn't want to be part of this school community. I was just helping her understand where she stands. By pouring water on her books, by tripping her in the hallways, by making her life miserable every single day. Jake's voice was getting louder and other students were starting to notice the confrontation. That's not helping, Jessica. That's bullying. The word hung in the air between them like a challenge. Jessica's face flushed red and her friends shifted uncomfortably behind her. Being called a bully was clearly not something Jessica was used to hearing, especially not in front of other students. "I'm not a bully," Jessica said, her voice tight with anger. "I'm popular because people like me because I'm fun to be around." That girl brings the negativity on herself by being so antisocial and weird. "No," Jake said, stepping closer to Jessica. "You're using your popularity as a weapon against someone who can't fight back. That's exactly what bullying is." Amanda stepped forward, trying to defend her friend. "Jake, you don't know what Maya did to Jessica on her first day. She completely ruined Jessica's shirt, and it was a really expensive one. She never even offered to pay for it." "It was an accident," Jake said. "And even if it wasn't, that doesn't give anyone the right to torment someone for months." Brittany joined in. "But she's so weird, Jake. She never talks to anyone, never tries to make friends. How are we supposed to include someone who clearly doesn't want to be included?" Jake looked at the three girls standing behind Jessica, and he suddenly understood something important. They weren't evil people. They were followers going along with Jessica's behavior because it was easier than standing up to her. They had probably convinced themselves that Maya deserved what was happening to her because it made them feel better about participating in it. "Did any of you ever actually try to talk to Maya?" Jake asked. "Did you ever invite her to sit with you at lunch or include her in a conversation or ask her about her interests? Or did you just decide she was weird and start treating her badly?" The girls exchanged glances, and Jake could see that his questions had hit home. None of them had actually tried to get to know Maya. They had simply followed Jessica's lead in ostracizing her. "Jake," Jessica said, her voice becoming more pleading than demanding, "you're one of the most popular guys in school. You're the basketball captain, you're good-looking, you're smart. You could have any girl you want. Why are you throwing all of that away for some nobody who doesn't even appreciate what you're doing for her?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Jake said simply. "And if standing up for someone who's being mistreated makes me less popular, then maybe popularity isn't as important as I thought it was." Jessica's expression hardened again. "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. If you want to social suicide by associating with her, that's your choice. But don't expect things to go back to normal when you realize what a mistake you're making." "Is that a threat?" Jake asked. "It's reality," Jessica said. "You're either with us or against us. And if you're against us, then you're going to find out what it feels like to be on the outside." With that, Jessica and her friends walked away, leaving Jake standing alone by his locker. Several students who had been watching the confrontation quickly looked away and hurried to their classes. Jake could already feel the shift in the social atmosphere around him. Conversation stopped when he walked by, and some of his teammates gave him confused looks. During first period, Jake found it hard to concentrate on his world history lesson. He kept thinking about Jessica's words and wondering if he had just made a huge mistake. Being popular at Jefferson High wasn't just about feeling good about himself, it came with real benefits. Teachers treated popular students better, college recruiters paid more attention to popular athletes, and having a good social standing made everything easier. But then Jake thought about Maya, sitting alone in the cafeteria every day, walking through the hallways with her head down, trying to make herself invisible to avoid more harassment. He thought about how her hands had shaken when she was cleaning up the water from her soaked books. He thought about the pain he had seen in her eyes and the quiet thank you she had whispered when he helped her. During second period chemistry class, Jake made sure to sit near Maya. When Mr. Davis asked a particularly difficult question about molecular structures, Jake was pleased to see Maya raise her hand confidently. Her answer was not only correct but showed a deep understanding of the subject that impressed even Mr. Davis. "Excellent explanation, Miss Chen," Mr. Davis said. "You clearly have a strong grasp of these concepts." Jake saw Maya smile slightly at the praise, and he realized that this was probably one of the few positive interactions she had at school each day. It made him even more determined to continue supporting her. After class, Jake walked with Maya toward the cafeteria. "How are you doing today?" he asked. "Okay, I think," Maya said quietly. "I heard about what happened with Jessica this morning. The whole school is talking about it. Are you worried?" Jake asked. Maya was quiet for a moment. "I'm scared that she's going to make things even worse for me now. And I'm scared that she's going to make things bad for you too. I don't want you to lose your friends because of me." Jake stopped walking and turned to face Maya. "Maya, listen to me. You are not responsible for Jessica's behavior. You didn't ask to be bullied, and you didn't ask me to stand up for you. I made that choice because I believe it's right. Whatever consequences come from that choice are mine to deal with, not yours." Maya looked at him with an expression that was part gratitude and part disbelief. "I don't understand why you're doing this. Nobody has ever stood up for me before." "Then it's about time someone did," Jake said. "And maybe, if we're lucky, other people will start standing up too." As they entered the cafeteria together, Jake could feel dozens of eyes watching them. The social lines were being redrawn, and everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Jake led Maya to his usual table in the center of the cafeteria, where his basketball teammates were already sitting. "Guys," Jake said as they approached the table, "I'd like you to meet Maya Chen. Maya, these are my teammates." The silence at the table was deafening. The silence at the basketball team's lunch table stretched uncomfortably as Jake stood beside Maya, waiting for his teammates to respond. Maya clutched her lunch tray tightly, her knuckles white with tension. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Tyler, Jake's best friend since middle school, was the first to speak. Hey Maya," he said awkwardly, then looked at Jake with confusion. "Jake, what's going on, man?" Before Jake could answer, Derek, one of the team's seniors, snorted with laughter. "Seriously, Morrison? This is your new girlfriend? The weird girl who never talks to anyone?" Maya's face turned bright red and she took a step backward. "I should go," she whispered to Jake. "This was a mistake." "No," Jake said firmly, placing a gentle hand on her arm. "You belong here just as much as anyone else." He turned to Derek with a hard expression. "And she's not weird. She's smart, she's kind, and she deserves to eat lunch without being insulted." Marcus, the team's point guard, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Look, Jake, we're not trying to be mean or anything, but why are you doing this? Jessica Williams is really upset about something you did, and now you're bringing her." He gestured toward Maya. "To our table. People are starting to talk." "Let them talk," Jake said, pulling out a chair for Maya. She hesitated for a moment, then sat down carefully. Jake took the seat beside her. "Maya is being bullied by Jessica and her friends, and I'm not going to stand by and watch it happen anymore." "Bullied?" asked Connor, the youngest member of the varsity team. "Jessica doesn't seem like a bully. She's always been pretty cool to me." Maya spoke up for the first time, her voice quiet but steady. "She's not mean to everyone. Just to people she thinks can't fight back." The table fell silent again as the boys processed this. Jake could see them thinking, probably remembering times they had witnessed Jessica being cruel to other students but had written it off as just normal social dynamics. Tyler looked at Maya with genuine curiosity. "What kind of stuff does she do?" Maya glanced at Jake, who nodded encouragingly. She took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice getting stronger as she continued. "She trips me in the hallways. She and her friends knock my books down and laugh about it. Yesterday they spilled water all over my homework. They spread rumors about me being weird and antisocial. They make sure no one wants to be around me." "That's messed up," Connor said, frowning. "I mean, I knew Jessica could be kind of mean sometimes, but I didn't know she was doing stuff like that." Derek rolled his eyes. "Come on, guys. Every school has a social hierarchy. Some people are popular, some people aren't. That's just how it works. There's a difference between not being popular and being actively tormented," Jake said, his voice rising slightly. "Maya isn't asking to be the homecoming queen. She just wants to come to school without being afraid." Marcus leaned forward, looking at Maya. "Why didn't you tell a teacher or something?" Maya's laugh was bitter. "Tell them what? That the most popular girl in school is being mean to me? They'd either not believe me or they'd make it worse by trying to intervene. Jessica is smart about when and where she does things." Tyler nodded slowly. "I get that. And you know what? Jake's right. This isn't cool." He looked directly at Maya. "I'm sorry this has been happening to you. We should have noticed sooner." "You couldn't have known," Maya said. "People like Jessica are careful about who sees what they do." Over the course of lunch, the conversation gradually became more natural. Maya relaxed slightly as the boys asked her about her classes and her interests. She mentioned that she was taking several advanced placement courses and was particularly interested in biochemistry. "Whoa, you're in AP Bio with Mrs. Patterson?" Marcus asked, impressed. "That class is supposed to be impossible." "It's challenging," Maya admitted, "but I love it. The way living systems work is fascinating." Connor, who was struggling with his own science classes, looked hopeful. "Maybe you could help me with chemistry sometime." "I'm totally lost." Maya's face lit up with surprise and pleasure. I'd be happy to help. As lunch period was ending, Jake felt cautiously optimistic about how things had gone. His teammates weren't fully on board yet, but they had treated Maya with basic courtesy and respect. It was a start. However, as they left the cafeteria, Jake noticed Jessica watching them from across the room. Her expression was furious, and she was whispering intently to her friends. Jake had a sinking feeling that the real confrontation was still to come. That afternoon, during basketball practice, Coach Williams pulled Jake aside. Jake's heart sank when he realized that Coach Williams was Jessica's father. "Jake," Coach Williams said, his expression serious, "I understand there was some kind of incident between you and my daughter today." Jake chose his words carefully. "There was a disagreement about how a student was being treated, sir." "Jessica is very upset," Coach Williams continued. "She says you embarrassed her in front of other students and accused her of being a bully. She's a good kid, Jake. She's never been in trouble at school, she gets good grades, and she's involved in lots of activities. I find it hard to believe she would bully anyone." Jake felt trapped. Coach Williams was a good coach and generally a fair man, but this was his daughter they were talking about. "Coach, I respect Jessica's accomplishments, but that doesn't mean her behavior toward other students is acceptable." "What exactly are you accusing her of?" Coach Williams asked. Jake explained what he had witnessed and what Maya had told him. Coach Williams listened without interrupting, but Jake could see the skepticism in his eyes. "Jake," Coach Williams said when Jake finished, "you're a good kid, and you're one of my best players. But you need to be careful about getting involved in drama between girls. Sometimes these situations are more complicated than they appear." "This isn't drama, Coach," Jake said firmly. "This is bullying," Coach Williams sighed. "I'll talk to Jessica about being more mindful of how she treats other students. But Jake, I also need you to think about your responsibilities to this team. We have a championship to think about, and I can't have my captain distracted by social problems." The conversation ended there, but Jake left practice feeling uneasy. It was clear that Coach Williams didn't really believe his daughter was capable of the behavior Jake had described. And the warning about team responsibilities felt like a threat. That evening, Jake talked to his parents about what had happened. His mother, Linda Morrison, was a middle school teacher, and his father, Officer Tom Morrison, had dealt with bullying situations many times in his work. "You did the right thing," his mother said firmly. "Standing up for someone who's being mistreated is always the right choice, even when it's difficult." His father nodded in agreement. "Son, I'm proud of you for having the courage to get involved. A lot of people would have just looked the other way. But what if it makes things worse for Maya?" Jake asked. "What if Jessica retaliates because I stood up to her?" "Then you keep standing up," his father said. "Bullies count on people being afraid to oppose them. When someone finally does, it often gives other people the courage to speak up too." "And if it affects your basketball career?" his mother asked gently. Jake thought about this for a moment. Basketball had been his life for years. He had dreams of playing in college, maybe even professionally. But when he thought about Maya's grateful smile when he had helped her in the library, he knew his answer. "Then that's a price I'm willing to pay," he said. His parents exchanged a look of pride and worry. They knew their son was about to face some difficult challenges, but they also knew he was growing into the kind of man they had raised him to be. The next morning, Jake woke up determined to continue supporting Maya, no matter what consequences came his way. He had no idea that events were about to escalate in ways he couldn't have imagined, and that his simple act of kindness was about to trigger a chain reaction that would change not just Maya's life, but the entire social dynamic of Jefferson High School. Jake arrived at school the next morning to find that Jessica had escalated her campaign against Maya in ways he hadn't anticipated. As he walked through the hallways, he noticed students staring at their phones and whispering to each other. When he asked Tyler what was happening, his friend showed him a group chat that had been circulating since early morning. The messages, clearly written by Jessica or one of her friends, painted Maya as a dangerous outsider who was manipulating Jake and trying to break up established friend groups. The texts claimed that Maya had threatened Jessica, that she was unstable and possibly violent, and that students should be careful around her. "This is insane," Jake said, reading through the messages. "None of this is true." "I know that," Tyler said, "but a lot of people don't. Jessica's really good at making herself look like the victim." Jake found Maya at her locker, and he could immediately see that she had heard about the rumors. Her hands were shaking as she tried to organize her books, and her eyes were red as if she had been crying. "Maya," Jake said gently, approaching her carefully. "Are you okay?" She looked up at him with the expression of pure despair. "Everyone thinks I'm crazy now. People are actually crossing the hallway to avoid walking near me. Someone even asked Mrs. Rodriguez if I was dangerous when I was in the library this morning." Jake felt anger building in his chest. Jessica had crossed a line from bullying into character assassination. "We need to tell someone about this. A teacher, the principal, someone." Maya shook her head frantically. "No, that will just make it worse. If we tell on Jessica, she'll just say we're lying, and then everyone will really believe I'm crazy and vindictive." "So what do we do?" Jake asked. Before Maya could answer, they were interrupted by Emma, Jake's younger sister. She looked upset and was slightly out of breath from running through the hallways. "Jake," she called out, "I need to tell you something important." Emma looked nervously at Maya, then back at Jake. "I overheard Jessica and her friends talking in the bathroom this morning. They're planning something big for Maya today. I couldn't hear all the details, but Jessica said something about making sure everyone sees what she really is." Maya went pale. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," Emma said, but Jessica looked really angry and Amanda was talking about getting everything on video. Jake's mind raced, trying to think of what Jessica might be planning. Whatever it was, it would probably happen in a public place where lots of students could witness it. The cafeteria during lunch seemed like the most likely scenario. "Maya," Jake said, making a decision, "you're not going to lunch in the cafeteria today. We'll eat in the library or outside somewhere." "I can't hide forever," Maya said quietly. "If I start avoiding places because of Jessica, then she's already won." Jake admired Maya's courage, but he was worried about what Jessica might do. "Just for today, until we can figure out what she's planning." However, fate had other plans. During fourth period biology class, Mrs. Patterson announced that they would be doing a group presentation project, and she would be assigning the groups randomly. Jake watched with growing concern as Mrs. Patterson read out the group assignments. Group 3 will be Jessica Williams, Amanda Carter, and Maya Chen, Mrs. Patterson announced. Jake saw the triumphant smile spread across Jessica's face and knew immediately that this wasn't a coincidence. Jessica's mother was on the school board, and the Williams family had influence throughout the school district. It wouldn't have been difficult for Jessica to find out about the group assignments in advance and arrange to be placed with Maya. Maya looked terrified, but she nodded when Mrs. Patterson told the groups to get together to plan their presentations. Jake watched helplessly as Maya walked over to where Jessica and Amanda were sitting. Well, Jessica said loudly enough for other students to hear. "Looks like we're stuck working with the school psycho." "I'm not psycho," Maya said quietly, sitting down at the edge of their group. "That's exactly what a psycho would say," Amanda added with a laugh. Mrs. Patterson was busy helping other groups and didn't notice the hostile interaction. Jake wanted to intervene, but he was assigned to a different group across the room. Jessica leaned in closer to Maya, lowering her voice so that only their group could hear. "Listen carefully, freak. We're going to do this presentation, and you're going to do exactly what we tell you to do. If you try to show off or make us look bad, I will make sure every student in this school knows exactly what kind of person you really are." "What do you mean?" Maya asked, though Jake could see from across the room that she was already intimidated. "I mean that I have ways of making people's lives very unpleasant," Jessica said with a cold smile. "You've seen what I can do when I'm just playing around. You don't want to see what happens when I'm really trying to hurt someone." For the rest of the class period, Jake watched as Jessica and Amanda planned their presentation, while completely excluding Maya from the process. Maya sat silently, taking notes when they bothered to include her in the conversation, but mostly just enduring their subtle insults and threats. When the bell rang, Jake immediately went to Maya's side. "How did it go?" "Not good," Maya said, gathering her things. "They're planning to make me do the entire presentation alone while they just stand there. If I mess up or if the presentation doesn't go well, they're going to blame me and say I sabotaged their grade." "That's not fair," Jake said. "Can't you talk to Mrs. Patterson about changing groups?" "On what grounds?" Maya asked. "That I don't get along with my group members? Mrs. Patterson will just tell us to work it out ourselves." Jake realized Maya was right. Teachers often saw group conflicts as learning opportunities rather than legitimate problems that needed intervention. During lunch, Jake made sure to sit with Maya at a table near the center of the cafeteria, surrounded by his basketball teammates who had gradually warmed up to her over the past few days. Connor had even brought his chemistry homework for Maya to help him with. But Jake could see Jessica watching them from across the cafeteria, her expression calculating and cold. She was clearly planning something, and Jake had a feeling it would happen soon. The confrontation came during 7th period study hall. Jake was in the library working on an English essay when he heard raised voices from the main hallway. He looked up to see other students rushing toward the commotion, and his heart sank when he realized one of the voices belonged to Maya. Jake ran out of the library to find a crowd of students gathered around Maya and Jessica near the main office. Jessica was standing in front of Maya, pointing an accusing finger at her, while Maya stood with her back against the lockers, looking trapped and desperate. "She stole my phone," Jessica was shouting loud enough for everyone to hear. "I left it on my desk during biology and now it's gone. Search her backpack." Maya was shaking her head frantically.
"I didn't take anything."
"I would never steal." "Then you won't mind if we look in your bag," Amanda said, reaching for Maya's backpack. "Don't touch my things," Maya said, clutching her backpack protectively. "See?" Jessica said triumphantly to the crowd of watching students. "She won't let us look because she knows we'll find my phone." Jake pushed through the crowd, finally understanding Jessica's plan. This was a setup, designed to make Maya look guilty in front of as many students as possible. Whether Jessica had actually lost her phone or was just pretending, she was using the situation to publicly humiliate Maya and turn the entire school against her. "Stop," Jake said loudly, stepping between Jessica and Maya. "This is harassment." "Stay out of this, Jake," Jessica snapped. "She stole my phone and I want it back." "Did you actually see Maya take your phone?" Jake asked. "I don't have to see it," Jessica said. "I know she took it. Who else would do something like that?" Jake looked around at the crowd of students watching the confrontation. He could see that some of them were already convinced of Maya's guilt, while others looked uncertain. This was the moment that would determine not just Maya's reputation, but whether the school's culture would continue to tolerate bullying or finally take a stand against it. Jake made his choice. "If you're accusing Maya of theft, then we need to get a teacher involved right now. Let's go to the principal's office and settle this properly." Jessica's confident expression faltered slightly. She hadn't expected Jake to escalate the situation to adult involvement, but she was committed to her course of action now. "Fine," she said. "Let's go see Principal Martinez. But when they find my phone in her bag, I want everyone to remember that I tried to handle this quietly first." As the crowd began moving toward the principal's office, Jake caught Maya's eye and tried to communicate reassurance and support. Whatever happened next, she wouldn't face it alone. Principal Martinez looked up from his desk with surprise as Jessica Williams, Maya Chen, and Jake Morrison entered his office, followed by a crowd of curious students whom he quickly dismissed back to their classes. The tension in the room was immediate and obvious. "What seems to be the problem here?" Principal Martinez asked, gesturing for the 3 students to sit down. Jessica immediately launched into her accusation, explaining that her expensive smartphone had gone missing during biology class and that she believed Maya had taken it. She spoke with the confidence of someone who had never been questioned by authority figures, her voice clear and convincing. "I don't want to get anyone in trouble," Jessica said, managing to sound both reasonable and victimized, "but my phone has all my important contacts and photos on it. I just want it back." Principal Martinez turned to Maya, who looked small and frightened in her chair. "Maya, do you have anything you'd like to say about this accusation?" "I didn't take her phone," Maya said quietly. "I would never steal anything from anyone." "Then you won't mind if we check your backpack," Jessica said, looking at Principal Martinez expectantly. Jake spoke up before Maya could respond. "Principal Martinez, I think there's something you should know about the context of this accusation." "Oh?" Principal Martinez raised an eyebrow. Jake took a deep breath, knowing that what he said next would change everything. Jessica and her friends have been systematically bullying Maya since the first day she arrived at this school. They've been making her life miserable for months, and I think this accusation is just another way to humiliate her. Jessica's face flushed red with indignation. "That's completely untrue. I've never bullied anyone. Maya is just antisocial and weird, and now Jake is defending her because he feels sorry for her or something. I've witnessed the bullying myself, Jake said firmly. I've seen Jessica and her friends trip Maya in the hallways, knock her books down, pour water on her homework, and spread rumors about her. This phone accusation is just the latest escalation. Principal Martinez looked thoughtfully between the three students. He had been an educator for over 20 years, and he had seen this kind of situation before. These are serious accusations on both sides. Jessica, you're accusing Maya of theft. Jake, you're accusing Jessica of bullying. Both of these are serious violations of our school policies. I can prove Maya took my phone, Jessica said desperately. Just check her bag. And I can prove Jessica has been bullying Maya, Jake said. Other students have witnessed it. My sister Emma has seen some of it. And I'm sure if you check the school security cameras, you'll find evidence of harassment. At the mention of security cameras, Jessica's confident expression wavered slightly. Principal Martinez noticed this change immediately. That's an excellent point, Jake. Let me call our security coordinator and have them review the footage from the past few weeks. I'm particularly interested in any interactions between Maya and Jessica in the hallways and cafeteria. While they waited for the security coordinator, Principal Martinez asked Maya to empty her backpack on his desk. Maya complied immediately, pulling out textbooks, notebooks, pens, and her lunch. There was no phone among her belongings. Well, Principal Martinez said, there's clearly no phone in Maya's possession. Jessica looked stunned. But it has to be somewhere. Maybe she hid it in her locker. Jessica, Principal Martinez said gently but firmly, I think we need to consider the possibility that you simply misplaced your phone. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Mrs. Patterson, the biology teacher, entered looking flustered. Principal Martinez, she said, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I found something in my classroom after 7th period. She held up a pink smartphone case. Is this what this is about? Jessica's face went completely white. That's my phone. I found it under your desk, Jessica, Mrs. Patterson said. It must have fallen out of your backpack and rolled underneath. I didn't notice it during class because it was hidden behind the desk leg. The silence in the office was deafening. Jessica stared at her phone in Mrs. Patterson's hand, clearly struggling to process what had happened. She had been so convinced of her own narrative that she hadn't even considered that she might have simply dropped her phone. Principal Martinez looked at Jessica with a mixture of disappointment and concern. Jessica, you've just falsely accused a fellow student of theft in front of numerous witnesses. That's a very serious matter. I thought, Jessica stammered, then looked at Maya with what might have been the beginning of understanding. I was so sure. Jake watched as the reality of the situation began to sink in for Jessica. She had been so eager to find a way to hurt Maya that she had convinced herself Maya was guilty without any real evidence. Principal Martinez spent the next hour interviewing each student separately, then together. The security coordinator arrived and confirmed that the camera footage showed multiple incidents of Jessica and her friends harassing Maya over the past several weeks. The evidence was clear and undeniable. When all the facts were established, Principal Martinez delivered his decision. Jessica would face a 3-day suspension for bullying and false accusation. Amanda and the other girls involved in the harassment would face detention and be required to attend anti-bullying counseling sessions. Jessica's parents would be called for a conference, as would Maya's. But the real change began in the days that followed. Word spread quickly throughout Jefferson High about what had happened in the principal's office. Students who had witnessed the bullying began coming forward to confirm Jake's account. Others admitted that they had known what was happening but had been afraid to speak up. Emma, Jake's sister, organized a group of younger students to reach out to Maya and include her in their activities. Several of Jake's basketball teammates apologized to Maya for not intervening sooner and invited her to sit with them permanently at lunch. Most surprisingly, some of Jessica's former friends began to distance themselves from her. Amanda, in particular, seemed genuinely remorseful about her participation in the bullying and approached Maya to apologize sincerely. I know sorry doesn't fix what we did, Amanda said one day after school, but I want you to know that I feel terrible about how we treated you. You didn't deserve any of that. Maya, who was gradually learning to trust people again, accepted the apology graciously. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. Jessica herself struggled with the aftermath of her actions. Her 3-day suspension became a time of reflection, during which her parents finally understood the extent of what their daughter had been doing. When she returned to school, she was a changed person, quieter, more thoughtful, and clearly working to understand how she had become someone who could treat another person so cruelly. 1 month later, Maya stood at the front of Mrs. Patterson's biology classroom, confidently presenting her group project to the class. Her new group partners, Connor and 2 other students, had worked collaboratively with her to create an impressive presentation on genetic engineering. Maya's voice was clear and strong as she explained complex scientific concepts to her classmates. After class, Jake caught up with Maya in the hallway. "That was an amazing presentation," he said with genuine admiration. Maya smiled, and Jake noticed that she no longer looked down at the floor when she walked through the halls. "Thank you. I actually enjoyed it. It's nice to be able to share ideas without worrying about being made fun of." "How are things going overall?" Jake asked. Maya considered the question thoughtfully. "Better than I ever expected. I'm still quiet by nature, and I'll probably never be the most social person in school. But now I know the difference between being naturally reserved and being silenced by fear. I have real friends now, people who appreciate me for who I am." Jake nodded, feeling proud of how far they had both come. "And Jessica?" "We don't talk much," Maya said. "But she did write me a letter apologizing for everything she did. I think she's genuinely trying to change. People can grow, I suppose." As they walked toward the cafeteria together, Jake reflected on how much had changed since that day he first decided to help Maya clean up her water-soaked books. Standing up for what was right hadn't been easy, and there had been consequences. Some of his old friends had distanced themselves from him, and his relationship with Coach Williams remained strained. But Jake had gained something more valuable than popularity. He had learned that courage is contagious, that one person's willingness to do the right thing can inspire others to be better. Maya had found her voice and her confidence. Other students had learned to speak up against injustice. Even Jessica had been forced to confront the cruelty she was capable of, and had begun the difficult work of becoming a better person. Most importantly, Jefferson High School had become a place where students looked out for each other instead of looking the other way. The culture of silence that had allowed bullying to flourish had been replaced by a culture of support and inclusion. Maya Chen was no longer the invisible girl in the corner of the cafeteria. She was a valued member of the school community, respected for her intelligence and appreciated for her kindness. And Jake Morrison had learned that sometimes the most important victories are the quiet ones.